So there are a lot of habitat improvements out there, and it's that time of year where everybody's getting really interested in making their property better. There's a hierarchy, I guess you could say, of which habitat improvements are best or better than others. And there is one that definitely sticks out to me when it comes to creating the ultimate whitetail hunting parcel. And even if you can't create this on a property, maybe you don't even own a property, you can still pick up on these different features or things that are going on public land, and ultimately allow these things that are going on naturally in the habitat to decide where you hunt. It's a simple one. I guess it's simple and it's not, because it's kind of an in-depth one as to how you get to the situation. But the use of timber stand improvement is very well the most important thing that you can do as a whitetail habitat management, maybe expert or newbie or whoever you are. If you want to create better habitat, or you're interested in hunting deer, you got to understand habitat. So what does timber stand improvement actually do? It's kind of this is I guess a beginner course. Some of you are already going to know, what is timber stand improvement? Timber stand improvement is basically going in and making improvements on timber in your property to create better deer habitat. Well, how does that generally happen? Generally happens because or when you have really mature timber. And you have really mature timber on your property, and the canopy of these trees through the growing season is so thick and nasty that it's not going to allow the sunlight to hit the forest floor. So when that happens, and eventually, over time, these trees grow larger, you need to start removing some of them. And there's numerous ways you can do it, and there are right and wrong ways to do it, trust me. But you need to start doing it so that sunlight can hit the forest floor. We can create new regeneration at the deer's level, and it has a lot of benefits. And I'm going to get into some of those benefits real quick here. Just through timber stand improvement, you can almost check off all the boxes when it comes to the three main variables that most people talk about when creating the ultimate whitetail parcel. What are those variables? Food, cover, water. How can you accomplish all of your goals literally through one step, which is timber stand improvement? It's actually pretty simple. So by going in and strategically, and I say this in every video, and I'm going to keep saying it, you don't just go into your property and cut trees because you think you want to make better deer habitat. You need to understand how deer are currently moving through your property, what this timber stand improvement might do to manipulate movement throughout your property, and understand that if you make it in certain areas, it's not a place that you're going to want to go and walk through every single time that you go hunting. You're making these improvements to improve the property so that deer are going to use them. If you're invading these areas consistently, they're not going to use them. It's as simple as that. But I get it. That's why you're watching these videos. That's why you're trying to learn more. It's not as simple as going in there and cutting a bunch of trees, saying, "Ooh, we just hinge cut a bunch. Ooh, we just use the hack and squirt method. We just had a logger come in. He select cut. He clear cut. This is going to create the ultimate habitat." Always ask yourself why. Think a little bit deeper. Is this going to help me on a northwest wind, a southwest wind, given my access from this point of my property, which is on the south side, the north side? Think about your access routes. Do I have to walk past this area? Do I have to walk through this area? Make sense of all those things first. And that's what somebody like myself does for a living. So if you can't figure that stuff out, well, give me a call and we'll figure it out and get everything laid out for you. But there are some ways that using this method is literally going to check off all those boxes that we talked about, the food, cover, water. And that's what we talk about as whitetail hunters. I got to have the food, cover, water if you want to hold the deer. And how can timber stand improvement alone create food, cover, and water? I'm going to explain that to you. So what we're doing, we got that canopy. We remove that canopy through one of the methods that we've talked about, whether it's logging, select cut, clear cut. We're ultimately allowing the sunlight to hit the forest floor. And in the meantime, we could prescribe burn. We could prescribe burn, get rid of a lot of the leaf litter, and I would recommend doing that after the cutting's done because, well, it depends on the timing. If you're doing it all at once, you could interchange the two. But if you don't get rid of that leaf litter on the ground or vice versa, you're not going to get the best results possible when it comes to the new regeneration of forbs and grasses and things like that and saplings. Obviously, you're always going to want to get rid of that canopy maybe first. Because if you don't get rid of that canopy and you burn and you expect that burn to do something the first year, it's not going to, because the sunlight can't get down to where the burn was. You're going to get a little regrowth, but not great. So if you're going to do them within the same relative time frame. Otherwise, probably do that timber stand improvement first. But the food, cover, water, let's get to it. So when you go in and you make these timber stand improvements, what you're basically doing is you're creating new regeneration at the deer's level. You created nature's food plot is what you did. And you also created natural bedding. You created side cover at the deer's level, and within 2 to 3 years, you're gonna have an absolute whitetail paradise. So it's a win-win-win here. It's not as I'll call it sexy looking as planting a beautiful soybean plot or that clover plot that you gotta get every weed out of. But you need to realize that there's so much diversity in doing timber stand improvement when it comes to new grasses, new forbs, new herbaceous growth that the deer are going to be able to browse on. You're creating nature's food plot. There's going to be a lot of food in there, and when you start at the ground level, it's much more nutritious and much more palatable in the first 2-3 years. That young growth is much more palatable than them chewing on some old woody bark from a 100-year-old oak. You know what I'm getting at here? So you're creating nature's food plot. And not only are you creating nature's food plot and basically starting a process that would naturally happen over time, that we've seen, in the history of the earth, maybe through bad storms or tornadoes knocking things over, large-scale fire, burning things off. The process restarts over time. That's what you're doing by doing timber stand improvements. So now we created nature's food plot. Well, literally in that exact same area, you've also created a possible bedding area. You've created side cover at the deer's level, 2, 3 feet up, 4 feet up, 6 feet up. All of a sudden you have all this side cover that the deer are going to be able to use for bedding. So it's a win-win as far as creating the food and cover. Now, like I said, we talk about those 3 things: the food, cover, water. As whitetail hunters, how does this create water? Well, believe it or not, deer normally get about 90% of their water consumption through natural browse. There's a lot of people out there telling you need to put water holes in and things like that. I'm not going to tell you should or shouldn't. I don't think it's high on my priority list, mostly because deer get a lot of their water consumption through natural browse. Simple as that. Deer are completely different creatures than humans. We need to drink water every single day. We also sweat. Deer don't sweat. So it's a whole different process from a biological standpoint. Yes, they're mammals, but they don't work in the same fashion. So they don't need as much water as humans necessarily do. And the water that they do need, or basically they get through natural browse. So believe it or not, guys, if you go out and you do timber stand improvement, and I'm going to stress it again, and you do it in the right fashion, in the right way, and you do it in the right portions of your property, you literally can create food, cover, and water on your property. And what more could you ask for from a ultimate hunting property standpoint than creating that food, cover, water scenario and creating the ultimate habitat? You're gonna have better hunting, you're gonna have a better experience, you're gonna have more fun with your friends and family out on your property. So if you're looking to make improvements this next year, and you think there's a possibility that timber stand improvement might be one of them, chances are there's definitely some benefits that you could gain by going ahead and doing some timber stand improvement on your property. Make sure you're using the right timber stand improvement, do your research. In worst case scenario, call up somebody like myself. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody who's got experience with these scenarios. So if you're thinking about making improvements to your property, guys, think timber stand improvement. So if you guys are liking these videos, make sure you're liking and subscribing. We're coming out tons of different content from a hunting standpoint, from a habitat standpoint, ultimately just helping try to make you better stewards of the land or deer hunters. So if you guys like what you're seeing, make sure you're liking and subscribing.